Talk to me nice, talk to me honestly. Look in my eyes, don't let it fall on
I'm
me.
Tiffany Henry. I lead our go to market here at Palo Alto Networks for software and hardware firewalls. And joining me is Aisha Robertson. So, Aisha, I'd love to give you a couple of minutes to just share a little bit about yourself, who you are, and your role here at Palo Alto.
Definitely. So, as Tiffany said, I'm Aisha Robertson, and I lead go to market for our public sector business, focused on state and local government. And I actually joined Palo Alto Networks about 6 months ago. But I've been in the IT space for about 10 years, and I actually started my career in the public sector. I hold a MBA from North Carolina State University, as well as as a project management certification, PMP. So awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. And by way of introduction and a little bit about myself, I've been at Palo Alto Networks since December, so coming up on a year with this amazing company. Prior to that, I spent some time at Cisco, where I worked my way up from data management and I would say a whole bunch of project management, strategy and planning to more of a operations management and more strategy planning and ops type of roles across software defined networking as well as security. And then prior to that, spent some time in the US Navy doing some intel work overseas. So I would say a little bit of an untraditional course than most would take in the tech industry, but excited to be here and excited to spend some time with everyone today. So before we get started, what I'd love to do is just share a little bit about Palo Alto Networks for those who may not be familiar with us as a company and the work that we do. So Palo Alto Networks is the global cybersecurity leader in the industry. We have over 85,000 customers worldwide. We have a presence in over 150 countries. And really, our vision is to create a world where each day is safer and more secure than the day before. And there's a few different ways that we do that, just to put that into a bit of context, right? So, as the pandemic occurred, we know that there were a lot of organizations that immediately needed to be able to support remote working. And being able to do that and having, I would say, security being a foundational piece of that is one of the ways that we help the world make that transition, right? Because a lot of the work that was done in offices now we're done remotely, and being able to move not only the people but the devices and making sure that everything that was touching that network maintain the same level of security is important for our customers. So that's something that we help to do to make sure as that transition happen that we can provide a safe environment. And as we shift away from, I would say, from the physical world and really a lot of the physical places that we do business into more e-commerce spaces and really that shift to digital platforms, we help to drive and really maintain that same security that you had as you were physically in the store, as you now do with your digital footprints, and being able to make sure that those are not only safe experiences that you all have, but that we're helping the businesses to do those kind of things effectively. So those are just a couple of ways that we leverage our expertise in security to help create, like I said, a place where each day is safer and more secure than the last. So today's conversation, I would say there's a few things that we're going to touch on as a part of this discussion. As we were sitting down and just talking through what are some of the key things that we wish we could really just share with folks, right? There were a few things that came to mind. One was around managing our careers, looking at some of our career transitions, being able to talk through like the importance of mentorship and sponsorship, and just those key things that we know are so fundamental to to creating a career in any industry that you so choose. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Aisha, I'll turn it over to you because one of the things that, as I mentioned, we discussed is the importance of managing your career. And I mean, at the opening session, just looking at, Carolyn and Peggy have that conversation, one of the things that came up was, am I ready? Right? And that just hit home for so many people. And you saw that in the chat. It's like it lit up that everybody's like, oh my gosh, I felt that same way. Right? Like, am I ready to take on this next step? And a big part of what we have to do is manage our career, right? Whether we feel like we're ready or not. But being able to move past that point and take initiative of that. So I was hoping you could share with us, some of your thoughts around managing your career and some of your experiences and any words of wisdom you want to share with the group.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, when I introduced myself, I started my career in local government. And, it's a very interesting environment. And as I looked around, I noticed, one thing for sure that, these are mostly career people in these roles and they stay forever. And, I looked around and I said, well, there's nowhere I can grow my career here. There's nothing next for me to do. There is no career path. And so, that's when I started making my plan as to what am I going to do next. And within that plan was, my professional development, of which for me, the thing to do was to go back to school. I went back to school and got my MBA because I knew that I wanted to work in tech. And so I was very deliberate in choosing the university that I attended. I went to a liberal arts college for undergrad, the University of North Carolina. And so going to a technical college to pursue the IT space was what seemed like the right thing to do. And so, it led me to actually, before I even finished school, I got an offer from IBM and I spent, a bulk of my career working at IBM. And it was a great space because I was able to build up a great network of actually Black women in sales, which what led me to the sales position. I saw Sherry on; she's been one of my mentors over the years. And, I was able to work in several different industries and financial services. I worked and did some consulting in healthcare, and then I had the public sector background, and then I worked across industries and was able to see a lot of different things. And one of the best pieces of advice that I got was that Aisha, you're responsible for your career. You're responsible for what you want to do next. And everyone expects their career to have this upward trajectory, and that's not always the case. There'll be some lateral moves. There'll be some opportunities where you might even have to take a step back, but, or you look at it as taking a step back. But every opportunity in which you're able to gain new skills and up-level your skill set and raise the bar to getting to that next level, I think it's so very important.
Yeah, no, you raise a fantastic point, right? That sometimes we believe that it's going to be this way, right? That it's just moving up. But to your point, there's so much that happens as far as horizontal movement, as you're looking at your career and really growing your depth of knowledge in certain areas and being able to better understand the business. Sometimes those horizontal moves help you to drive your trajectory up a bit more quickly than if you didn't take those horizontal moves. So I agree 100%. And if I just think back to some of the knowledge I also gained from great mentors, which are just so important to each and every individual to have, is to really challenge yourself to broaden your knowledge by going in unconventional places, right? So being able to think differently around what success looks like, and how when you're managing your career to look outside the box a bit, right? Something that you thought may have been a great fit for you, and where you think the end may just be the beginning. I keenly remember, once I was in Cisco and moved into the first enterprise networking group that I was in, or team that I was in. And I remember my goal was like, well, I just want to be a project manager. Like if I can attain that goal, I'm gonna be set. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna be so happy with that. That's where I want to go. And I remember my manager saying, Tiffany, I don't think you'll be satisfied with that. Like, I think you'll want to do more, because there's other things that you just ask questions about that, um, that leads me to believe you may want to explore other opportunities, right? And it's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know, right? So, after having more conversations, we started to expand, my understanding of what are the available opportunities, what are some of, my strengths, and how does that go into different roles, and being intentional about, really seeking more knowledge about what those potential roles may be. And I think that can make a tremendous difference in your career.
Definitely. I recall, and I didn't mention this very interesting thing, but I spent the bulk of my career in marketing. And, coming over into sales was inevitable. As I mentioned, I had these great mentors, and I actually, the last role that I took at IBM is very much what you said. I started working in channel marketing, which I had absolutely no experience in. But, one of my mentors, thought that I would, be a good fit for the role. And so that was learning a whole different business. And, then my customers became other companies. And it was
Mm,
my responsibility to help other companies to build their marketing and their presence in the marketplace, to be able to sell our solutions and gain the knowledge. And working in the channel was probably the best thing that I ever did. And, it led me to a position at Amazon, which ultimately led me to Palo Alto Networks. And so I just think that, that sometimes I've been hearing this term a lot, especially on LinkedIn, about doing it scared. And you have to, just believe in yourself and your skill set and the knowledge. And, another good nugget that I received was, if you look at a job description and you think you can do about 75 to 80% of the job, then you can do the job. Because there's so many things that you're going to have to learn on the job. Even as you change divisions within a company, there's so much learning and unlearning in some cases that you really have to do. I spent a month working on a consulting project in Brazil, and that was very scary.
mm.
And as a mother, leaving my kids and my husband at home for a month unattended, like that is a scary proposition. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that's so very important point that you bring up. Um, Let me ask you, Tiffany, what do you think, you talked about, having mentors and that being important. How would you say that, having mentors has, played a big part in your career?
Oof. I mean, without mentorship, I know I wouldn't be where I am today. The very first mentor that I had was introduced to me by my manager. And he said, as you're getting into this company, it's great for you to be able to network and just try to see if there's someone that inspires you, right? Somebody who you believe is actually going to push you to become the best version of yourself. And he said, and just set up some time with them. It doesn't have to be anything that, you go in feeling like it has to be a commitment, but just spend some time with them to see if it's going to be a good fit. So we sat down, and I actually asked her for coffee, to meet for coffee on campus. And we didn't talk about work. Like, we just talked about family. We talked about our experiences. We talked about life. And we just made a connection, right? It's not always about, solely a professional discussion. It was a personal connection that led me to say, okay, yes, I want this person to mentor me because they embody the values that I value so much. And I would say it was the beginning to a beautiful relationship, one that evolved, I would say, from mentorship to sponsorship. And I think it's important for us to delineate the two, right? You have a mentor who's amazing. They'll provide you with guidance when you need it. There's somebody that you can actually go to, for a sounding board. They have a wealth of knowledge, familiar with the work that you do. Like, there's just so many things that a mentor does, and they can coach you along the way. But then there's a sponsor, and a sponsor is familiar with the work that you with the work that you've done, with what you've accomplished. They feel confident in your abilities, and they're willing to speak up for you when you're not in the room. Right? They're the one advocating on your behalf when you didn't know that the conversation was even happening.
Absolutely.
And when a mentor can evolve into a sponsor and they have the role and the titles to be able to create change and to create opportunities for you, that's a very valuable relationship. And I know that's how I found some of my subsequent roles and transitions within my career was from those mentors who evolved into sponsors. But that doesn't happen, by way of asking. That happens by way of really showcasing your abilities and performing, and then being able to move forward in your career. So they've played, I would say, a tremendous part in my career, both from like a coaching aspect as well as being able to really um, advocate on my behalf.
Yeah, you said something very important there. And, with having a sponsor and to your point, my sponsor was, definitely responsible for a lot of my career growth within IBM. And, when we talked, I was saying how people think that because they do a good job and they work hard, that they'll just advance in their career. And we've learned through our career that that's not always the case, but having someone in that room, and as Black women, we're not always in the room, and we're not always, in our companies having those leadership positions. And so while I think it's so important that, we have other Black women that we can work with as mentors, mentees, and sponsors, that we have to reach across the aisle, because we have to make sure we're talking to the people that are in the room that can speak up
Mm,
for us when we don't know the conversations being had.
yes, yes. And that's such a powerful point, Aisha. I mean, you are spot on, right? One of the pieces of advice that I got early on, and I'm so grateful for it, was we had a team offsite. And as a part of that offsite, I was, two, there was two people of color as a part of the offsite out of a team of about 35. I was the only woman of color. And I could tell that I was certainly like the youngest in the group as well,
Mhm.
right? And at first, I was a bit, I'll be honest, like intimidated. I didn't know, am I going to speak up on these points? Am I going to hold back? Or am I going to, show up a bit more authentically to who I am? And it was really, as I mentioned earlier in my career, and trying to figure out what those boundaries were. And during one of the lunch breaks, one of the people on the other side of the aisle, an older Caucasian man, he pulled me off to the side and said, Tiffany, just so you know, I can tell you're a little quiet as a part of the offsite. He was like, I know you have some great ideas, but you're not really saying much. And he
Mhm.
said, and I want you to know that I know that yes, you're the only, Black woman here, and you're a little bit younger, but there's a reason why you're in this room. So you
Absolutely.
need to use your voice and make sure that they know why you're in this room. And to this day, I've never taken that for granted, because after that moment, I knew that that was someone who was, basically champion on my behalf with others in a room that I wasn't in. And he wanted to make sure that I showed up so he can go and drive on my behalf. And I think those are, those moments where you may feel alone, you're really not. Like, typically you have a champion that's in there for you, that's advocating on your behalf, but we still just have to show up each day and be able to make sure that we're not giving them a reason not to. So I just know that that was certainly a critical part of my career, and part of what I learned early on is to make sure that I'm creating and taking up space as each opportunity occurs.
Absolutely. I think, so we both talked a little bit about our careers and our career journey. Let's So see if we have a few minutes to take questions, but before we do that, just what led you? I know you worked at Cisco, and they do networking and some cybersecurity, but being at a at a company wholly so focused on cybersecurity in a day where ransomware attacks are happening every day, what led you to Palo Alto Networks and cybersecurity?
Oh man, it was truly the mission and the values that the company had. Right. If I look at how we value so much integrity, collaboration, disruption, execution, like all of the things that not only make us successful as a company, but keeps our customers secure. Right. Those are all the same values that they're driving into their day-to-day business that we help to support. And I really wanted to be a part of a company that's growing at a phenomenal rate, right? Overall, just being able to be a part of history in the making, I felt like was an opportunity that is few, far, and in between. So I wanted to take advantage of it. But beyond that, as a part of the interview process, we discussed the importance of diversity. We discussed the importance of investing in our people. We discussed the importance of retaining talent, mobility, and being able to grow your career within a company. We discussed all of those things, and it wasn't something that was a forced discussion. It was something that they proactively wanted to discuss with me to make sure that I understood what their commitment was to their people. And those are the things that really led me to want to become a part of this organization.
Awesome. I mean, that really sums it up so nicely. I had the opportunity to see security when I was at IBM and worked in data security as well for B2B integration. And it was just so important. I remember being at IBM during the time when Equifax had the huge data breach, and just how important that was. It was a scary time within Target, because like, who doesn't shop at Target, and Equifax has everybody's information.
Right.
So and I think for me, along my journey and working in the channel and working with independent software vendors, as I looked around and said, what is the next thing that I'm going to do? Like, this job was honestly, I would love to say that I chose Palo Alto Networks, but I think Palo Alto Networks chose me.
Yeah. I love it.
And so, I'm just grateful every day. I think what you said is absolutely the best thing that I can say about Palo Alto, because since I've been here, I felt like I can show up to work. I can have my voice, and just happy to come to work every day. I mean, it's not a cakewalk, it's work, and so
Right.
there are always challenges in the workplace. But when you work for a company that values your well-being and that every day is prioritizing how they can, it's not just lip service, but I just got invited to impact teams. Like, we don't look like our customers. Aisha, what can we do to do more recruiting at HBCUs and do more events like CIS, to make sure that we do show up and we look like our customers? So I see we have a question in the chat, and that's a very good question. I'll take a stab at it, and Tiffany, definitely chime in. But when you're looking at sales opportunities and you're looking at beginner roles, it can be, if you look at a company, it can be called inside sales. It could be called business development. Along those lines, there are numerous sales support roles. There's sales communication. There's business operations. So, we have dozens of jobs open right now at Palo Alto Networks, and we also have our recruitment team on staff. So please come by our booth, and you can find out more there. But Tiffany, what are your thoughts around good places to start in sales?
Yeah, all of those are certainly it. And I know we have our LEAP program as well for some of our upcoming graduates, or recent grads, shall I say, as another place for you to look at. So I would certainly look into some of the early in career pages, look at some of the graduate programs that they have, as well as even some of the intern programs that companies may have. that may be early in career sales roles, where you can intern and then transition into a permanent role. So I think there's a couple of different paths for you to be able to get there, but we're more than happy to share with you some of the opportunities with Palo Alto Networks for our early in career sellers.
Yeah, and I just saw another question which was interesting, and it's really more about a career pivot, which is something that, like I just mentioned, the sales organization is the organization that's, you know, probably is the biggest revenue center for the company. That's where all the money is coming in, and a lot of it also being invested. And so if you're in, I see, I think you said a project coordinator, project management role, that's always valued. There's always change management happening in sales. There is sales enablement always happening. And a lot of those opportunities are definitely the business support side of sales that's needed. And if you work in a specific industry, there's, you know, you can look at that particular industry for sales opportunity, but even at a company like Palo Alto Networks, we have industry sales as well. So when you bring industry knowledge in from healthcare or from the industrial sector or from, you know, distribution, like those are things that are very important. As I mentioned, I work in public sector. So I was able to bring together my public sector knowledge into the sales organization. So there's always a place for industry knowledge within the sales organization.